everybody, welcome to the workshop. I'm Luke with Building with Kinfolk, and today we're going to be building one of the items that's been on my honey-do list forever, actually since we moved in this house, and that's going to be a sliding barn door. Gonna have a ton of fun. This is actually not a terrible project. There's a few tools that we're gonna use that may or may not be necessary. You can go ahead and skip around them if you want to. And the wood selection is also gonna be one of those things that you can either go and get some sawed wood from somewhere, you know, I'm trying to use standard sizes, or if you want to go out and get some rough cut stuff from your local lumber store and cut it out of that, you can as well. Me personally, I'm going to be using some 1x12s that I actually got from my lumber store here. I can get pine shelving for really cheap, and I'm going to rip that down to the sizes that I need, but again, totally up to you. So before we get started into anything else, here's what you're going to need. All right, our cut list for this is not terrible. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you all the cuts you'll need. Depending on what size wood you're actually gonna grab from the store, if you're gonna get it from like a lumber yard, it may be a little bit different as to what pieces you cut from what pieces of wood. Now, before you do anything, as I always say, make sure you cut a sliver off the edge to make sure you have a true 90-degree angle. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into this cut list. You're gonna need 4 1x6s cut down to 23.5 inches long. Now, remember, a 1x6 is actually 3/4 by 5 1/4 because you don't get what you pay for. Next, you're gonna need a 1x10, which of course is 3/4 by 9 1/4 wide. We'll also need to cut that one 23.5 inches long. All right, for our 2 long boards, they'll need to be 1x6 by 82 3/4. Again, 3/4 inch thick by 5 1/4 inch wide by 82 3/4 inches long. Okay, don't let that mess you up. I'm only saying that because there may be some people that may go out and grab some 1x12s because they can get some of that pine shelving for cheaper, and they may be ripping this down themselves just like I did. All right, for our last cut, it's gonna be maybe the most difficult cut depending on what kind of tools you have. We're gonna take our 4x8 piece of plywood and we're gonna cut it down. Now, if you have a router and you have this nice little flush trim bit, so these are awesome. If you don't have one, if you do have a router and you don't have one of these, I would go grab one. They're ain't but a couple of bucks, depending on where you get it from. They come in a lot of the kits, but this right here allows you to basically use that roller right there and cut the things that are above or below whatever is that roller, depending on which way this is oriented. Cuts that flush with, again, whatever the roller's against. So what that means for us is we're gonna go ahead and make this piece of plywood a little bit larger than it has to be. That way we don't have to have the exact measurement. It's also gonna give us a straight line as opposed to fighting with that with a handsaw. And so if you don't have this, you are gonna have to cut this down to exact measurements, and you're gonna have to be very precise with your cuts today. So just keep that in the back of your mind. It is worth having the router if you got it around. If you need the exact measurements, you're gonna cut it 82 3/4 tall by 35 inches wide. Now, if you're like me and you're gonna use the router, you can make that cut a little more liberal, probably adding a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 to both of those measurements, and we'll cut those off at the very end. So, that's it for the cut list. Really not that bad. Now, let's go ahead and start doing some pocket holes. All right, so for the pocket hole part of this project, first of all, like I always say, you wanna make sure you have your best side facing up. Again, we're not gonna see the pocket holes here because they're gonna be against our piece of plywood backing. So you wanna make sure that's up. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put 2 pocket holes on each side. And so you want them to be closer to the edge for this project, only because if you do have a biscuit joiner, I am gonna use one here. You don't have to have it, but I like to have it anytime I'm creating a super flush front, whether it's a table or a door or anything like that. I just like using my biscuit. And so my biscuit joiner. So if you have it, we're gonna use it. If you don't feel any pressure here. You can do this without it. Just make sure that, you know, when we attach it all, it's super flat. So we're gonna do that on all of our boards. The only difference is on our larger 9 1/4 inch board, you know, 1x10, we're gonna do 3 on this, 1 in the center, and then 1 on the top and bottom. Just that simple. Let's get to Craigin'. All right, so I got my pocket holes done. On one of the boards, I had a problem where when I put the pocket hole in there, it actually split this wood a little bit. Now, if you've got another piece of wood that's fine. You go ahead and grab that and use it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this apart a little bit, throw some glue in there, clamp it together and let it sit for a minute, and I'm still going to use this, but I ended up drilling a second hole right there, which is why you'll see that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. As soon as that dries up, we're going to grab us a biscuit joiner, and we're going to grab our long boards, and we're going to start making some marks and doing some biscuit joining. And if you don't have a biscuit joiner, it's okay. Watch anyways. You may learn something. If you've never used one, it's a cool tool to have. Maybe get it for your birthday or Christmas, or I don't care. Just go buy it. You know what? Treat yourself. Just go buy it. You know, get it. All right, so at this point we have all the pocket holes drilled. We have all of our optional biscuit joints done. Ready to put together. So I'm using number 20 biscuits. Like I said, if you're not using it, just ignore me when I talk about it. Otherwise, what we're going to do right now, if you're not using biscuits, you do want to use a Beta seam for all these connections. If you are using biscuits, you're obviously going to be using glue in those seams either way. So all we're going to do right now is start at one end, go all the way down, and get all of this connected in, and then we will start doing, you know, the other side as well. If you have a clamp, you want to use it. It can help you hold it together and make sure you got a good flush. Just depends on if you like using clamps or not. I don't like to force anybody to do anything. You know, if you got it, use it. If you want to, use it. If you don't want to use it, I don't care really. You're the one who has to live with the end product. I have to live with this one. Probably not going to use the clamp because I don't use the clamp very often. So the ramblings of Luke are now over. Let's put this door together. Now we need to make sure we have the right distance for each one of these from the top. Now the top is going to be your smaller side, which is the 1x6 at the top, not the 1x10. That is your base. So measuring from the top, you're going to measure down and make a mark at 18 3/8, 36 3/4, 55 1/8, and those will be the top of your 3 boards that are in the center. Your 2 outside boards obviously go flush to the ends. All right, so we've actually got what I believe the hardest part of this done. We've got our main door finished up. I think it's gonna look beautiful. If you wanna go ahead and cheat and look at it, now's the time to do it. Let's see what we got. I'll let you see it first. What does it look like? I bet it looks beautiful. It does! This is gonna be a great sliding door. My wife's gonna love me so much more when I get this done. All right, so now we're gonna flip it back upside down again. And we need to go ahead and get some glue on this. This is very important because this is how we're going to attach the piece of plywood that goes to the back. Now when you're putting your glue on, I'd suggest using some kind of little bristle brush. We're going to be pretty generous with it because we want to make sure that, you know, it sticks well. And then what I'm going to do is, if you got a bunch of clamps laying around, you can use those. If you got weights, you can put weights on top of it. I'm probably going to do a little bit of both. And we're just going to let it dry for a little bit. You know, we don't want to mess this up. If you really want to truly, fully support your door, I guess you can go ahead and put in some small wood screws in the back. I don't think it's necessary with the glue at all, but totally up to you. I always want to leave those options on the table. So let's get to gluing this bad boy up. I don't really care what you got to use to weight it down. I got this top, this marble. It's heavy. I'm going to throw it up there too. Just all the weight I can get. All right, well, you know, I feel pretty good about what's happening behind me. We're just gonna let this dry up for a little while, then we'll come back to it. And we're gonna get this project finished up. Now, you wanna make sure you give this plenty of time to dry. And there's a chance glue doesn't take well and you may have to put in some wood screws in the back like I mentioned. If so, do that, and then we're gonna fill them in, and hopefully you'll never be able to tell the difference, especially if you're gonna paint this instead of stain it like I am. So let's let it dry. We'll be back in a minute. All right, got all the weights off of it. Let's flip this bad boy over and see what we're working with. Hopefully it's not glued to the table. It's not, thank God. Oh, that is beautiful. Looks pretty decent everywhere, which is good. So what I'm actually gonna do is we're gonna grab a rag, hit some of these wet spots And then we're gonna go ahead and grab our router and get our edges all cut up, cleaned up, smoothed out. And then we're gonna do some sanding. So just a whole list of things. The other thing we might do is throw some wood filler in there. We'll see. But we'll say the more glue you can get off of it now, the easier it's gonna be when you go to start sanding this. So remember that. All right, that right there is why I love using the router. I've got flush edges everywhere now. This is just good to go. I didn't have to fight with getting it the exact size. It's awesome. So the next thing we're gonna do right now is we're gonna go ahead and fill in some of our rough spots with some wood filler. So the number one question I always get asked is, what is the best wood filler to use? And my answer is very simple. It's this Timbermate. This is a water-based wood filler. I use just, it's their tint base or their natural. You're gonna pay a little bit more for it than you probably will at some other stuff, but it is hands down the best stuff I've ever used. So when we were turning out product back around Kinfolk Builds, I mean, we were pushing out easily anywhere between 5 and 10 to 15 tables a week, furniture pieces, all kinds of stuff. And this is what we use for 100% of our projects. And it's great because you put it on there, and if you're doing stain, you won't hardly ever be able to tell the difference between the wood and this. If you're doing paint, you definitely won't. It sands down nice. It's really an awesome product. So I'll make sure to link it below, but this Timbermate stuff, it's the way to go. All we're gonna do is we're gonna go through here and we're gonna fill in any rough spots we have, any cracks, anything like that. And while we're letting our glue continue to dry, because there's still probably a couple of wet spots and all that, we can be letting this dry so that here in a minute we can hit it all with the sander at one time and get it ready to either paint or stain. All right, so we've got it all sanded down. The front of it's ready to paint or stain. I'm gonna paint mine. And the next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is drill our holes, both for the little hangers and then also for our whatever kind of doorknob or rod or pipe or whatever you're gonna use here. We're gonna go ahead and get all these holes drilled, because the last thing we wanna do is paint or stain it, go to drill those holes and it pop off a little chunk of wood, and then you've gotta redo the paint or stain around that area. So give you a little tip here. Plywood, as you know, when you start drilling it, can start to want to tear apart on you. What I like to do is take a little scrap piece of wood and clamp it. Once I make my spots on the top, go ahead and clamp it to the bottom and essentially drill down into that block. That'll help hold that plywood together so it's not going to break up on you. So just a little tip. You don't have to do it, I don't guess, but it'll save you a lot of heartache more than likely. So we're going to go ahead and get these put in. Make sure you follow whatever the directions are that come with it, so you know the right height and all that kind of stuff, because the last thing you want to do is put a bunch of holes in your door only for them to be wrong. And I can say that because I've done it before, because I don't like directions. Okay, let's do it. All right, I got it, everything drilled out to go ahead and put my hangers on. I'm not doing my door handle yet because honestly my wife's not here, and I don't know what side she's gonna want it on. And I'm not gonna make that decision without her, because it will be wrong, I promise. So we're gonna flip this bad boy over, hit it with the sander on the backside one time, and then we're gonna start painting it up, getting it all finished up, and then getting it hung. So let's get through it. All right, folks, not a bad project at all, is it? Didn't take too much time, not too hard. Love it. Get a beautiful sliding door up. We're gonna let this one dry. We'll get the hardware on and get it up, and my wife will love me more, I hope. If not, then we'll be building more projects. Well, we'll be building projects either way. So make sure you let me know in the comments what you think about this, or if you have any other ideas for what you'd like to see us build, I'd love to hear about it down there. And then don't forget to check out the website and all the social medias. Y'all know the spiel. Go do it all. Anyways, thanks for hanging out today in the workshop. Can't wait to see y'all next time.